Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there, it's Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 240 of this new series of the Cognitive Podcast. This one's called At Last, because I have spent days trying to get to it. As I record this, it is Thursday, July 3rd, 2025 at 2:16 p.m. Your comments are very welcome. Please feel free to comment on the blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com or on our group on Ravelry. In the warm thanks department, we got a few of them. First, I want to thank Turbo Gal for attending the protests in St. Paul, Minnesota, despite the assassinations. And I also want to thank you for your very moving comments about the Hortmans and the Hoffmans. And second, I'd like to thank you just for acknowledging my comments on this. When you're recording a podcast, you always wonder, I think I've said this a million times, what should you be saying, if anything? Are you purely here for the entertainment value? But there are some things that simply cannot go unattended. And this was one of them. And so, Turbo Gal, I mourn with you and with the people of your state. I mourn with all Americans that this should have happened at all in our country. I also would like to thank Ann McGee and Amy Storm for your assistance in finding all the yarn and crafting places in Ventura and Carpinteria. I am especially pleased to know that I can easily walk from the train station, thank you both, in Carp to Roxanne's. On this particular trip, I didn't get that chance, but now I'll be back. But I also will be talking about this trip later. Anyway, I really do appreciate the help. I also want to thank Amy for reminding me about Fabric Town and Super Buzzy in Ventura. I have to say I've always wondered about both these stores. I've been to Fabric Town many moons ago, so I really appreciate your help. And then, of course, you had to mention that within walking distance, there's a bookstore and a coffee shop. Silent screaming. In the Finch community, I want to give a big chirpy welcome to Kimmel and her Finch, Everwill. I think it's very cool that you're sharing goals with your daughter. I think that's a really nice piece of parenting to help your kid get on this kind of app. I think we have to be realistic, don't we, that the younger generations are using the internet. Back in my salad days as a young licensed clinician, we were trying to keep them off the internet. And now, of course, I think we have to realize this is going to be a major part of their lives. So I think directing your kids to the healthy stuff on the internet is a really nice thing. In general, I want to thank my communities in this whole group, all my listeners, and also on the ground in the SCV, in Reddit, and on Finch. I also have to mention Loretta, 1031. I know you're out there, and I know we have to touch base about the future of CFR. But right now, I'm still recovering from 4 days in Ventura and Santa Barbara with the fam. If you look in the show notes, you will see a picture of Forthright and Courage, my two Finches. They were hanging out together in Rome when I took that screenshot. They have both moved on. One of them is in Edinburgh, Scotland, buying up all the kilts. The other one is in Reykjavik, Iceland. These are, of course, both places where I've spent some time, so I recommend them to my burbs, and that's where they are right now. If you would like to join Courage's flock, the ID is right there in the show notes. I believe it's Courage is on my Mini, and Forthright is on my phone. They both travel with me all day long. The reason I have two of them, it's a long story. It's only one account. And it's just really kind of motivated by which machine I'm using more at different times of day. There are times I regret having two of them, let me tell you. But it's weird because they get to take pictures together. Meanwhile, let's get on to what's on my hooks and needles. Well, I did finish yet another emotional support chicken. This is yet another made out of sock yarn, and I'm wildly using up stuffing. I'm really happy about both those things. This one is, of course, named Senator Elizabeth Warren. That is War Hen. Oh, everybody groaned together. I couldn't help it. I was reading one of the great lady's speeches, and I thought, okay, that woman gets a chicken, particularly since her name lends itself to a terrific pun. This is a purple chicken, and I thought that was especially appropriate because I do believe Senator Warren is advocating for both people on the red and the blue sides in our politics. She's just trying for the good of the people. So there you are, Senator Elizabeth Warren. If you go further in the show notes, you will see her in her unfinished state, because these chickens are really interesting pretty much at every phase of production. Now, the interesting thing about the senator was I made her comb and her wattle and her breastplate first and found, yes, that really makes me feel better about manufacturing these chickens. I say this because I did start a new one. I'm just using up all these scraps and all this stuffing, and it makes me feel good. In the meantime, I'm also working on the September sweater. This is, of course, crocheted. This is from yarn that I've had since 2009 from our friends at yarn.com, webs. And I really just needed to get through this yarn. So I'm just working away on this, and it went with me along with Senator Warren to Ventura, and I mostly worked on it in Ventura. I didn't really do that much about the good senator till we got home. But I am well on my way on that second piece. I just measured it against the first piece. It is slightly more than half the size of the first piece. Yes, it is taking forever, in case you wondered. But I have been doing that. I haven't touched any of the other projects, except every now and then I have the swatch for the alfresco sweater. I use the term loosely. It's really just two big rectangles sewed together. I have that sitting on my desk, and every now and then when I'm at my desk, I'll just swatch a row. I'm considering it swatching. I'm not sure. I think this is going to work real well, but I have the cotton lying around, and it's good to use it. Also today, I am finally getting to, I bought a ton, I tell you, of cotton fabric on sale at Joann Fabrics while it was in its closing agonies. And I mean, I got pretty good prices on it, I have to say. Now, of course, it wasn't much of a sale. They pretended it was a sale, and it wasn't. But compared to everybody else's prices for cotton, it was. And I sort of looked at it that way. So I bought a lot of just solid colors to make the backs of quilts. Some of them, I believe, will also be made into cotton skirts, because I think I've just got that much. But at any rate, I am, as we speak, washing all that cotton right now. And then when it cools off here, because it's in the low 90s here right now, when it cools off in the evening, I'm going to open some doors and windows, and then I'm going to iron that stuff. So the goal is just to have it washed and ironed and folded neatly in my closet. So when I next get ready to back a quilt, I have that stuff ready to go. I learned this many, many moons ago from my incredibly dense sewing nun. This woman, I mean, seriously, Senator Elizabeth Warren has more brains, I suspect, than this woman, but she was a pretty good seamstress. And one of the things she really drilled us in is when you get fabric, wash and iron it right away. That is a habit I have grown to love. The Knitmores, a while back now, sent me this picture. They're trying to lure me back to San Jose, and I believe they're going to succeed, I must admit. But they sent me a picture of a simply breathtaking quilt square with a cat, a black cat, sitting around in stained glass, and I want it so badly. Of course, that's kind of stupid. What I really want is to visit them, and I also am really toying with running the San Jose Rock and Roll again this year. It was just a fun run. I just had such a good time that weekend that I went up there and I stayed at a hotel that was right almost on the starting line and was on the finish line. And I got to hang out with Lexicom for dinner, which was a huge reward. And then I got to hang out with the Knitmores for a day. So this was so rewarding. And so I am struggling. I want to go back. I want to go do all these things. And I know that they will try to lure me by waving quilt shops and yarn and all that in front of me. You don't have to lure me, girls. I really want to come up there. And I'm trying to think when the San Jose Rock and Roll is. I believe it's in October. I am struggling. I am struggling. Mostly it's about taking time off from work. Whew! Dizzy Blondes. Hallelujah. I finally finished spinning that second braid of camel hair silk, which is now living half in my nose and half on my bobbins. I am thinking about the kumquat colored silk from Lisa Souza. This is a BFL. But to be honest, I have, I believe, a sweater's worth of this beautiful greenish blue BFL. And yeah, I'm having a Gigi Knitmore moment where she would basically say, what are you waiting for the Pope to visit? Why aren't you knitting it now? Like she always would say, why do you wait so long to knit your beautiful yarn? Yes, Gigi, why am I waiting so long to spin my beautiful pale greens and pale blues? I'm looking at it longingly. That's that twisting noise. That's my neck twisting. You hear, why am I waiting so long, Gigi? I don't know. So yes, I probably am just going to give up and dig into that. In the meantime, I really probably am going to ply at least 2 plies together of that camel hair silk because it's extremely thin. And I want to ply it against 2 plies of the kumquat BFL. But I would like it to be slightly thicker than it came out the last time I tried this trick, braiding it against the purple BFL, if anybody remembers this. Yes, Gemma, what are you talking about? Well, what I'm talking about is all of this is on my Electric Eel 6.1. And yes, that's Queenie yelling in the background. Queenie would like to remind you that she and Captain are quite all right. That's why she's yelling. She's reminding me because I think it was Ann McGee who said, are the dogs okay? We haven't heard about the dog people in a while. Okay, I must admit, Queenie is now outside thanks to the beloved son, who also took over one of my jobs for the day and did a better job at it than I did, which is nice. I am doing my 15-minute strategies, which is I do not want to commit the rest of my vacation to nothing but house cleaning, but yet we need a lot of house cleaning. So I am doing things in 15-minute increments today, and my son hopped over where I was scrubbing a wall and did a better job and did the window. Bonus points. Okay. Speaking of strategies, let's do one, shall we? And I really have been talking about this whole episode so far. And the strategy is plan your breaks. And that sounds really like a contradiction in terms, that we have this fantasy that a break, oh, I'm done, I can take a break now. That doesn't actually work for most of us in the working world. Most of us have to actually make sure we take a break. This is probably a very sad reflection on the way the workplace is in America. So those of you who get better breaks than us, please adopt me so I can move to your country. I'm not completely kidding there. But you really do have to think about this. You really do have to try to accumulate time and use it to take breaks. But the other thing is you also have to make sure you take them. There is a tendency in my culture here in America to praise workaholism. And now that I'm in my 60s, I'm here to tell you most of my workaholic friends have died tragically young. That the idea is, no, you don't get anything from being a workaholic. Now, in some of my professions, yes, I did. When I was a college professor, I became a professor in a world where people could not get jobs because I worked my buns off, because I worked at being faster than everybody else at finishing my dissertation, and I worked at getting my material out there. So in a sense, I'm talking about, yes, definitely in the professional world, you have to be proactive in certain places. But there is a moment where you have to realize that you must take time off. Now, I have approached this over the years in many ways. I had one colleague, a psychiatrist who I quite liked, a guy named Dr. Ben Salem, Arabic guy, really nice guy, kept saying I was like his daughter, and I really enjoyed him. This is when I worked at the prison. And Dr. Ben Salem was famous for he worked every day. He saw patients 7 days a week. He was okay with that. What he did, though, was he only saw 2 or 3 when he wasn't working at the prison. So in his private practice, he would see 2 or 3 people a day. And you can argue that's all he needed to do, but he was, from what I could tell, living a fairly expensive lifestyle. But what I learned from him was proactivity and to do work in short spurts. And I found that extremely helpful. And that's one of the reasons he liked me, because he saw me as someone who worked really, really hard in a culture where a lot of the employees did not. And that's why I liked him, to be honest. One of the reasons I respected him. But the other thing I learned when I worked in the prison is that you really do have to take breaks. It's a mental health thing that your work will grind you down. And you need to make friends if you're working in any kind of corporate environment and there is an application that is used to manage your breaks and your salary and all that. You need to make friends with that application. And you need to really look at it and figure out what you need to do. And yes, in my world, I have a great job. This is not a complaint about my employer, let me tell you. But in my world, I realized that I could accumulate time off and then use it. And I also realized I like what I do. And so, yes, I did work overly hard for a while, for about almost 2 years, to accumulate the amount of time I wanted off because I felt like I could. This has paid off, sadly, because of things like the quarantine and the current working laws in America that, frankly, in the beginning of my time in this job, I had easier patients. Now, as we're getting squeezed for our health insurance, I've got patients with much more serious issues being funneled towards me. So, yes, I'm glad that I arranged this. And it does sound kind of grim, doesn't it? And it isn't, because you have to remember, in the world I work in, I can plan how many patients I want. So if I sound like I'm overworking, no, I basically figure out how many patients do I have to see, because I'm paid by the patient, how many patients do I have to see in order to make what I need to make to pay the bills. I'm not going to work harder than that now that I'm in my 60s. So yes, I could be making more. No, I refuse to take a job that is going to stress me out. I've done that enough. And this is really what I'm talking about, is that you have to have your working life on this kind of career curve where you have to think about when you can work, when you can max out your earning potential versus when you can take breaks. And you do need to think about it. But the thing that I think we forget in America is you do need to take breaks. You really do have to plan them. I'm deeply grateful because on this break, we decided we wanted to give our son some kind of graduation present. We were going to give him a trip. He wanted to go to Ventura. So we took a long weekend, which you're going to hear about in the blather. And we had a great time. And my husband was the hero of the day. He drove home from Ventura. It's about 30 miles back to the farm and fed everybody, made sure everything was good, had some quiet time at the farm for himself while we were in Ventura eating ourselves crazy. I'll come back to it, and having fun up in Santa Barbara and riding the train and all that. So all of this is to say the strategy is to think about your time off and to plan it. What does that mean if you're already retired? What does that mean if you're a stay-at-home mom? I would say it's pretty much the same thing. I think if you're retired, I got nothing to say because I don't know how to do that trick, except to say I know many people who are retired and are doing meaningful projects to them, and I would still argue those breaks matter. And if you're a stay-at-home mom, all I can say is you're stronger than I am, and I respect that. I do not have that in my genetic makeup. I'm here to tell you. I know because my mother didn't either, and she was forced to do it, and it didn't work well, kids. It didn't work well. So all I can say is it really doesn't matter whatever place you find yourself in. You're going to have to think about the fact that you do need rest, and you do need to plan your rest, and you do need to plan it. And yeah, true, if you have a family, whether you're stay at home or you're working out of the home, it doesn't matter. Your family is going to break into your planned breaks, and you have to think about that as well, that is the blessing and the cost of having a family, that they do kind of, do unexpected things. Okay, so please, guys, this week, since I'm on my break, I'm going to tell you, y'all need to plan your breaks, and you bet I've got my next 6 months planned. Meanwhile, in Green Fingers, I have been struggling to feed my plants, and I got a lovely feeder that hooks onto your hose, and that didn't work could not get the connectors to work very well. So I have been struggling today. I finally got a watering can. The spearmint is doing pretty well. The creeping thyme is mezza-mezz. About half of it is working and half of it is just croaked. I think one of the beautiful things I planted without thinking much about it one morning, I wasn't fully awake, and I stuck a Texas sage and a Russian sage right next to the wisteria, partly in its shade. Both of these plants are supposed to be full sun. That wisteria has been thriving. I don't know where it's getting water from, but that thing grows like crazy. Turns out so are the 2 sages planted next to it. So I have some success there. The rosemary bush that you may remember me planting, I think 2 autumns ago now, almost 2 autumns ago, that thing is a shrub now. It's huge. If I could get more rosemary, I would. I think my next experiment is to take cuttings and try to root them. Because, boy, the one thing I got right, rosemary wants to grow there. And if we put a whole hedge of rosemary bush in there, I am fine with that. I do not know why I'm buying plants that say that they can grow in full sunlight and they're all croaking. The rosemary is just happy as it can be. So, meanwhile, I'm just trying to feed and keep everybody else alive, and it's not working that great. We are not having great success this year. But the spearmint is happy. You know, the interesting thing, I have to say, the spearmint, of course, was given to me by a Paiute woman who said this is native spearmint. She said it's not that garbage cultivar you buy over at the greenhouse. Yeah, and it's been doing great. It shouldn't be doing great where it's planted, and yet it is. The rosemary, same thing. It's just this woman with her own home project where she keeps planting and cutting her own rosemary and growing it into bushes, and it's doing great. I don't think much of these greenhouse cultivars, I am just saying. Shoot. Well, I did not hike in LA at all in this past weekend, but I did hike around Santa Barbara and Ventura, and I will be telling you about that in the blather. The running gear check, I'm just going to go back to that, and today we're just doing the torso. I think we're doing the upper torso. Oh, no, looks like I'm doing the lower torso too. This is pretty straightforward because on my body, the foundation, of course, is a jog bra, and under my shorts, no. I use running shorts. They have built-in undies. Okay, and then, of course, I have a shirt. And on top of the shirt, I have a GoPro for safety. So starting with the bra, with the support, jog bras are notoriously inconsistent. I would just tell you, if you're a lady runner, you have to wear one. Now, interesting thing, they will try to sell you this one with massive levels of support. Nope. I usually go one level lighter. And I would tell you, go anywhere you see exercise bras and try them on and see what you're comfortable in. Now, the tradition for women who have a B cup or smaller is a compression bra. Yes, just squash them flat. That's okay. They're miserable to crawl in and out of. So I would say, for those of us who are a little more endowed, mine is a front hook or a back hook. Now, my best jog bras came from Old Navy a few years ago. They had a brand and they worked. They don't still have them. Their current range of support, I don't think much of. I did go to Fabletics, which has a mall store over at the Glendale Galleria. And theirs, the problem was the sizing, and it may not be their fault. I'm beginning to realize that I've gone down a little bit in size up top. Now, I was told this is not possible, that your band size never changes. Yeah, well, mine seems to have. So I don't know what to say, because suddenly I'm in smaller racing shirts and smaller bras. Now, my tried and true Old Navies are holding up just fine. But the two I bought from Fabletics, I can't believe I can go down a size. I really have to go back and try it, because these are front zips and they're just a hair too loose. They're not bad for running, but I don't feel that supported. Yeah, it's a bit weird. All I can tell you about jog bras is it's a mighty tricky business. If you find a range of bras that fits you, buy 3 or 4, it is going to cost, but these things are worth their weight in gold. However, what I would tell you is unless you're really running distance, the maximum support ones have always been a little too constrictive for me. So you have to try out different versions and you have to see which one works. This is not unlike running shoes. And I think because men largely run the athletic clothing industry, we don't talk up jog bras the way we talk up running shoes, because everybody needs those, men included. But I would tell you, if you're going to commit to any form of harder exercise, you have to research the bras, you have to try on a lot. And like your running shoes, you are going to buy them and then say, no, that wasn't good after all, and they may not be returnable. But that is the single most important thing if you're a girl that you're wearing on your body. Over that, race shirts. If you wear cotton t-shirts, as we were told to do in my youth, that is like running in a wet washcloth. Do not do that. Get a technical shirt. Go to a running store or run a race that gives a tech shirt and wear the tech shirt. Running in cotton is kind of grim. I should know. I spent the first 30 years of my running career doing that because that's what we had. Yes, lo, these many years agone, when I started running, we didn't even have running shoes, let alone running shorts or running shirts, let alone jog bras. Yeah, it was tough back in the 80s and the 70s. I'm here to tell you. I came back from Scotland in the mid-80s, and they had invented, I think, running socks and then running shorts. And I'm trying to remember, I can't even remember when jog bras occurred. They might have occurred in the early 80s and I was out of the country. I'm not sure. But the point was, it was like coming back and finding out the whole technology of running had changed, and I'm mighty happy it did, let me tell you. But okay, now that we've all taken a little trip in the Wayback Machine, run in a tech shirt. A tech shirt is a mixture of synthetic and sometimes cotton. The important thing is it's breathing, and you're going to need that. It keeps you from getting really gross in a long run. And I am talking about a 5K here when I say long run. If you're going to run 3 miles in cotton, you're going to live to regret it. And you are going to sweat. In my most recent 5Ks, now that I have fixed my thyroid pretty well, I actually sweat when I run. I didn't for most of my running career because my thyroid was misfiring, but oops, they forgot to tell me. Yeah, so now that I actually have a working thyroid, I sweat like crazy. Believe me, don't run in cotton. Get breathable stuff, your shorts and your shirt and your bra, please. Now, the running shorts, like I said, I prefer shorts that have built-in underwear. People also run in bike shorts, underwear or no underwear. Well, if you're not going to wear underwear, please make sure it has a cotton panel between the legs to let some air circulate. Otherwise, you're going to have some unpleasant problems. The longer you run, the worse those unpleasant problems will get, let me promise you. So please, please, please think about that. If you wear bike shorts and you wear underwear under them, cotton's your best choice. Do not wear anything nylon under bike shorts because it won't breathe, and the other word for that would be torture. Please don't do that. Okay, I have run in bike shorts. I went quite a while enjoying running in bike shorts. These days I just prefer the running shorts. Mine are from Dick's Sporting Goods. Go in when they have a sale and buy a few pairs and then marvel at how short the things are and then remind yourself that you're beautiful. In the winter, I run in running leggings. Generally, I buy them from Roadrunner Sports. I do have a few pairs from Old Navy. Again, this is something you have to experiment with to see what you like. And yes, they have a breathing panel between the legs. And no, I don't wear underwear with them, kids. In case everybody wants to ask, there you go. Meanwhile, on top of whatever I'm wearing as a bottom and a top and a bra, I do wear a GoPro. Mine happens to be a 7 Silver. It has a micro SD card that records forever. And yes, when I go out the front door, I turn it on. And I have a subscription. This means that it is transmitting to a cloud service which monitors it. If I am in trouble, it will contact the police for me. Wow, Gemma, has that ever happened? More times than I can tell you. I had a very funny experience. I was talking to a patient and he said, well, when you run, what do you look for? And I think he meant in terms of trail. And I started talking about safety. And he said, wait a minute. You get attacked? And I looked at him and said, don't you? And he said, no. And we had this really wild discussion of what it's like to run as a man versus what it's like to run as a woman. Now, I know my husband used to run along the side of a 2-lane highway near us, and he got rude comments every now and then. So it's not like men never get comments. But I think the less like a professional athlete you look, the more comments you get would be my guess. Neither one of us has an athletic build, let me tell you. But when you are a woman, people seem to think that you want them to stop and make friendly comments as well as unfriendly comments. This apparently is not a thing men get. When they get comments, apparently they're rude, but they don't get as many. So all I'm going to tell you is I resisted. My husband tried to get me to wear a camera for years because I got attacked in our own neighborhood here a few times. You may remember those stories where Barron and Blankets saved me on several occasions. And, I finally gave up when a guy tried to corner me with his SUV right here in the neighborhood between two fences on a road that had nothing but solid fences. And I was wearing my GoPro because I thought I was going to get attacked by this dog who had attacked me the day before. So I'm wearing a GoPro. Totally changed that experience. The guy was frantic with fear. I happen to know he's an ex-con. He thought I might be transmitting. He was babbling into the camera, trying to talk it out of arresting him. Really interesting experience. That was the conversion moment for me. I didn't have it turned on. A little bit too bad, really. But anyway, from that point on, I got my GoPro up and running, and I make sure it runs. I maintain it. I make sure I know how to operate it, because it's not the most user-friendly machine. GoPros, I think $200 to $300, maybe up to $400, depending on the bells and whistles. And then you can go to their website and order a harness for your hat or a harness for your chest. I'm wearing one on my chest. Here's what the GoPro did for me. Since the day I put it on, nobody has sicked a dog on me, and nobody has stopped me while I'm running to talk to me. Nobody. The one time I was stopped this season was by a woman who I suspect may have had ICE associations, and I was not wearing the GoPro. And, okay, that was a lesson to me. So, girls, if you're out there, I'm sorry to say this, but I have to say I think you wear a GoPro. The stories of women doing everything right and still getting attacked, killed, assaulted, you name it, while running, unfortunately, are legion. There's a lot of them. Sorry, it's just safety. On from the grim. Let's see, did I tell you where I got everything? I do believe I did. Upcoming, I have the red, white, and blue 5K this Sunday. Unfortunately, today I banged my right foot into a doorway because did I mention I have no depth perception? I was too far to the right, as often happens, and I just whacked my little toe. I'm looking at it in all its purple glory. It's not broken, which is good, but it's definitely swollen and purple. So we'll see if I can run that on Sunday. The beloved son's supposed to run it with me. We're doing 5Ks. I will be icing tonight. However, if I miss the red, white, and blue, I have the Mountain Gallop coming up in Tehachapi on August 16th. You can see my schedule in the show notes with helpful graphics. Okay, they're not helpful, but they make me feel good. So far at this point, I've got at least one a month, I believe, up until the Jingle Jog. I haven't found a Jingle Jog that I want to do. There is one up in Palmdale, but there are some good reasons I don't want to run it. So we shall see. Meanwhile, on to the fluffy books. I'm still listening to My Lady Jane. It starts getting old after a while. I can never get past the root story, which is historical tragedy, but there we go. At night, I did finish Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I'm waiting for my next credit on Audible to get the next book in the series. I really quite liked it. Reader included, she kind of grows on you. Right now, I'm listening to India Holton's book, The Geographer's Guide to Romance. I'm deeply enjoying that. It gets steamy towards the end. It is, I have to say, familiar that India Holton's books are usually wildly original. This one just feels like a remake. Even so, it's witty, it's clever, it's enjoyable. It's the enemies become friends genre with a slight twist, and I'm enjoying it. And the reader is excellent. So I'm listening to that at night. I think I'm on chapter 9 out of 20, 21 or so. I'm catching up on the Beatrice, Duchess of Kesgrave. I think she's Beatrice Hyde Clare in the original series. I'm catching up on that in my regular book reading. That's a series that I enjoy. Something I really like? Well, I went looking for my environmentally friendly toilet sachets from Blue Poppy. They didn't have them. So I went to Becker's Dry Goods on Etsy. You can see the name in the show notes there. Turns out I really like them. I like their product. I like their packaging. They went the extra distance to wrap and separate the sachets that I bought. Sent a nice little note with it. The price was really good. If you have your own septic system, if you are not on a public septic system, I highly recommend that you go over to environmentally friendly toilet sachets, because you don't want to put things into your septic tank that are going to eat the plastic. I don't think you should use chemical ones anyway, no matter whose system you're on. But certainly if you're like us and you're on your own septic, yeah. So Becker's Dry Goods or Blue Poppy, good luck with both of them. As far as I'm concerned, they're both really good providers of these. Meanwhile, I did transfer my episodes on Proton, so we are now at, I believe, 141 to 180. Now it's the same folder, so it's probably the same link, I think I have to say honestly. And they are up for the month of July. So if you need old episodes of the original series of Cognitive, there they are. Put a lid on it. Well, we went to Ventura and we pigged out. We're still recovering. So I'm not eating much that's new, but I will talk about the pig out in Ventura. And meanwhile, yes, I'm still carrying that electrolyte drink recipe because, guys, it's hot out there. I'm a Southern Californian. I don't want people dropping over dead. So there it is. And remember, if you go and just buy one round of everything, so you buy, I don't care, buy a bottle of lemon juice if you don't want to squeeze your own, and a bottle of apple cider vinegar, and a packet of the no salt. I got mine on Amazon many moons ago and I'm still using it. I got it last year. And a box of Himalayan pink salt and a bottle of liquid stevia. Yes, I'm using mine from last year on all these things. And then sparkling water, as cheap as you can find it, Costco, Trader Joe's. This stuff will carry you forever. You don't need to keep rebuying new supplies for this. When you buy the basics, they're going to last. This doesn't take a lot of ingredients, or it doesn't take a lot of each ingredient. But please keep a jug of this in the fridge, will you, for those days where you overdo it. It is so much more healthy for you than Gasp, Gatorade, or any of those hideous things, even Pedialyte. Having said all this, let's get to the blather, shall we? Well, the best beloved drove us all off to Ventura for a long weekend. I finished work Friday night, and we just had our normal evening Mexican meal that we do every Friday night to celebrate. And then we went Saturday morning. And it was so great because I got up Saturday morning, and we were not due at the hotel till 2 o'clock-ish. So I went for a long run. I went out and did 3 miles, really enjoyed it. And then we fed everybody, and we set things up for our time away. And that means we got to Ventura just in mid-afternoon. And I don't even think we ate lunch. We had an early dinner. We went to the Greek at the harbor. It's not as good as it used to be. It's not as abundant as it used to be. Let's put it that way. The kids of the original owners now have it. But you can see a picture of our lovely dunch. It was dinner and lunch. I got the dips, which came with a huge amount of feta cheese and black olives. And the beloved ate the pita and the spanakopita. I had a bite of the spanakopita. It tastes like paste. Now, they make good spanakopita, don't get me wrong, but when you've been keto for 7 years, that flavor is not there. You can also see my husband's lemon soup. And what did he have? He had one of the cheeses that they bring to the table and then light up. I had a bite of that. It was good. And it was very, very good. Our breakfast the next morning was the hotel buffet. We thought it was included in the price. It wasn't, but it was tolerable. It wasn't great. And then I had already gotten up earlier and took myself to Starbucks to get out and to go to the local grocery just to pick up some basic supplies for our hotel room. And so we were there. I'm talking in present tense in the notes, but we were there until Tuesday afternoon. This is now Thursday afternoon as I record this. The beloved kept going home and feeding the animals, and the son took his bike, and so he was biking around the trails in Ventura. I kept walking back and forth to the marina, which is about a mile every direction. I really enjoyed that. In fact, I actually pounded down my old running shoes, my last pair of Hokas, and started having problems with my Achilles tendon in both feet and also with plantar fasciitis in my right foot. So it's time to retire the Hokas. I have to find a charity that accepts used shoes, because there are definitely charities like that for runners, because we don't kill our shoes, but we do beat them to a point where you can't use them for running. So anyway, you find those charities and you donate your shoes. If I find that, I will be happy to put it in the show notes. I know there's one out there, but I just haven't been able to locate it. At any rate, then my son and I one day, when the beloved went off to feed the animals, I guess it was Monday, we walked to the marina together and we had a fabulous lunch at Le Petit Restaurant and Cafe Bakery. You can see my salad. This salad, hearts of palm, pickled beet chunks, which no, I'm not supposed to eat since you're wondering, pistachio nuts, and seared tuna. This thing cost a fortune, but boy was it good, and the vinaigrette that came with it was fabulous and lovely and sour. The beloved son and I also went to the Santa Barbara Zoo. I'm sorry, I guess that was Sunday where I had the Le Petit meal. And then we went to the Santa Barbara Zoo on Monday. We took the train from Ventura to Santa Barbara. You can see the Santa Barbara train station. You can see my son and I on the bus together. We had a great time. We rode the bus to the zoo from the environs of State Street. You can also see a train car. We got business class tickets because I wanted my son to really have the best experience on Amtrak. Interesting thing, you're supposed to get snack service in business class. We did not get that northbound. But that evening, we took the train at about 6:30, I think, from the train station in Santa Barbara southward, and we had a lovely, lovely snack service. So there you go. One way you get it, one way you don't. It was okay. It was really okay, but it was a nice train trip. It's about 55 minutes from Ventura to Santa Barbara with a stop in Carpinteria, and it was really very pleasant riding along the ocean, looking out the big picture windows. You can see some lovely Maasai giraffes at the zoo in one of the pictures, a mom and baby. And you can see the local lion pair. The lioness was posing for us. The lion stuck his butt out for the camera. And you can see another of my favorite wild animals, my son, in his natural habitat. He really likes this zoo, and he wanted to go to the zoo, so we spent most of the day there and had a lovely time. My feet began to ache, so I just parked it for about an hour and a half and crocheted, and then got my wind back and went around and saw the rest of the zoo with him again. So we had a really good time. In the meantime, we continue the boycotts, and I also continue to carry the lifelines for our siblings who are LGBTQ+, because just because you are different than the mainstream doesn't mean you deserve death, you know? I mean, there's got to be some minimum level of care here, for heaven's sake, if we're humans. So there are the lifelines for both the Trevor Project and the Canadian line that they've opened to Americans. You can see my favorite community resources, the things that I use for knitting and crocheting, the things I like to buy to attach to my finished objects, the links to skills and techniques, and my link tree. You can also see the phone number for the line set up by the University of Southern California law students who are trying to help people who have to go to immigration court, since now there's a fear they will be arrested by ICE outside the courthouse. They can instead file a petition to change the hearing format, which can allow them to have their hearing online so they don't get arrested. The number is there in the show notes, and it is in both English and Spanish. On the calendar, you can see the events that are happening around the Santa Clarita Valley. These are just routine things. No specific dates are included there. You can see my running schedule, and you can see that CFR 11 is scheduled for October 11th, 2025. Minerva gets the last word. Well, actually, Minerva wouldn't even pose. So I have a animated GIF of a black cat with green eyes. Minerva has yellow eyes, but still. It has its back to us, and it is looking coyly over its shoulder. But really, Minerva would say, "You heartless monsters, you left us alone." Meanwhile, the dogs would say, "You came home, we love you." And to be utterly fair, when I came home, Minerva came running up to me when I reached the back bedroom, because she was locked in there so that Queenie wouldn't pester her when Queenie was loose in the house. And Minerva and I laid down on the floor, and we purred and rubbed our heads together and talked to each other. And then that night, Minerva jumped on the bed 3 times and woke me up so that she could lie on my chest and purr. In all fairness, I always play Minerva as kind of grouchy. She was the world's most irritable teenager cat, and she has turned into a big love bug. But thing about Minerva, she is strangely sensitive. If you pet her too long, it starts to irritate her back. You'll see it twitching, and she'll meow in discomfort. She also is very furry, so she overheats. So now I think Minerva and I, as she has matured, and perhaps I have too, we have learned to communicate better about occasionally she finds human attention uncomfortable. And so there's far less attacks and biting and clawing than there was in her troubled youth. In fact, she's really very affectionate with people, but she is not good at trying to modulate her responses. And that is the hallmark of a kitten who is not raised by a mother. In other words, she doesn't have appropriate socialization. So she kind of overreacts, and she isn't my first or last cat to be this way. I've had a few kittens that were not raised by mothers. Only one of them, the amazing Doe, our lone tomcat in all these years, got socialized properly because Guinevere, our purple Persian, raised him. You will remember Guinevere probably from the earlier series at any rate, and maybe even Doe for that matter. I'm not sure. At any rate, Minerva is actually a sweetheart, but I have to admit, she does think that we're kind of monstrous when we go and leave her alone like this, but she is happy because Minerva knows, as we all do, that we are a community. And when we do our best for the community, we are protecting the individual. And having said that, everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.